I'll lower my chair just a little bit for this. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back one and all to another Chris Chan video, where today, ladies and gentlemen, we are doing a revisit, ironically, to a quickie article called Chris and Nostalgia. This one is gonna get, this one I think is one of the more interesting aspects of Chris's history, certainly on this channel anyway. I really miss the good old days. Chris reminiscing of his high school days. That's I would love to start. I would love to actually start this video by saying that I do miss the good old days, but I'm glad that I've got kind of like moved on from them, even though in many ways I was a lot happier back in the day. But you move on, you grow up, and you learn to be happy with other things aside. I mean, for example, it was just over 5 years ago today when the legendary Sir David Bowie has tragically passed away, and a lot of people were very upset about that, and I was quite upset myself on that day, but you just have to, time goes on, unfortunately, or maybe for the better. Nostalgia is a sentimental longing or wishful affection for the past, typically for periods and or places with happy personal associations. It is associated with a yearning for the past, its personalities and events, particularly for the good old days or childhood events. That is true, and sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I just came off doing a bit of a workout before starting this video. I'm a little bit out of breath. Sorry about that. The foundation of much of Chris's adult life has been his fixation on the past, especially for things that have had deep significance to his life, in order to escape from the present, whether it be through cartoons, interacting with past gal pals and sweethearts, or reminiscing past experiences with trolls, which have become a massive part of Chris's life since 2007. Nostalgia in Chris's life. Although viewed as a mental disease when it is first discovered, nostalgia in the modern age is seen as a natural, common, positive emotion for escaping the confines of reality. Seeing how difficult it is for Chris to grasp reality as it is in its present, the way he grasps the past is unimaginably worse. Chris's nostalgia comes from a wide variety of sources. It can be speculated that the main source of Chris's nostalgia in unhealthy amounts is his stress. At a psychological level, nostalgia is the result of negative feelings and results in the increase in of one's positive emotions. It can also be used as a coping mechanism for dealing with whatever stressful situation one may be in. Given how Chris currently lives his life, constantly dealing with weens and being denied shiner by every girl he meets, Chris will sometimes use his past experiences in a strange way to relieve him from his stress. For example, at the end of the Jessica saga, Chris, feeling awfully depressed from losing his girlfriend for the umpteenth time, decided to contact Megan on her Facebook and hook her up with her again, even after having been accusing her of being behind his current situation for the past 4 years. Other times, Chris will hold on to past experiences that gave him grief. For example, before attempting to contact Megan ever again, Chris always held on to how Megan was somehow responsible for his problems in his life for supposedly leaking information of him on Encyclopedia Dramatica with Mims and Lucas. This attachment to such events can become so strong that eventually Chris will snap from all of the added stress. For example, in several 2013 September Facebook posts, Chris continuously curses Megan along with other fruits of his bad memories. He will either reminisce about possibly the few people that might save him, or the people that might have just simply forgive and forget. But unfortunately, not when it comes to this. Anemia, nostalgia for a time before Chris was born. As with many people, Chris also experiences nostalgia for media released before he was born. Much like a modern kid who loves 80s music and will tell you about how Queen is the best band on the planet. ironically, I was listening to Queen quite a lot on my way home from work, and I gotta admit, they are still really good. I can't even deny that. Chris has a liking for I Love Lucy, Gilligan's Island, and other media released during Bob and Bob's time. This is common for people who spend more time around their parents than they do around their peers. I mean, I suppose that the problem is that, well, who really would? Well, even kids at his age still must have been interested in, what was it, like Transformers and maybe Muppet Babies or whatever it was. I don't know whether Chris was just like, he never, I suppose when he was like moving between schools, he never had time to like establish real solid friends when he was at school. Chris and his childhood. When it comes to nostalgia, people tend to cherish it in order to relive a far simpler time. While this is perfectly normal in most people, Chris's... Oh, Jesus Christ, that noise. Chris's obsession with his past takes this normal aspect of the human psyche and twists it to pathological degrees. Chris reveals in his childhood memories and pursuing childlike fantasies to fill up on the stressful parts of his life, purely to ignore them. Now one could say that this is meant to be his childhood, but the trolls really were present in his adulthood, if you could call Chris in 2007 a adult, even though he hadn't quite lost his virginity or other things besides. After getting a bear hug at the 2018 MagFest from a fan who lifted his 212-pound body off the ground, Chris commented on the nostalgia he felt, saying, "Hey, did anyone get video or photo of Sping Palm hugging me and lifting me up high after the panel? I would love to have that video to watch over and over. I never thought I could ever be lifted high by anyone since I got too heavy for my parents." Oh. Actually, quick question. When was like the point when... Well, one, I'd love to know when that point was. Also, I don't know if it was just because Chris was... Well, his parents were elderly at the time anyway. Or whether or not Chris, maybe into his teens, was already starting to like put weight on in spades, you might say, but maybe. I don't think that's a good... I wouldn't, like, again, say stuff like that. That's, again, just quite weird. Manchester High. Of all the memories Chris holds dear, he seems to be most attached to his years in Manchester High School. This is true. It isn't too hard to see why. His years there were among the last where he frequently got out of his house and interacted in a social environment. This is best shown with the Green County conspiracy video, the Lego replica, and him wearing the jacket as shown with the 26 December 2014 incident, Sonic Boomgate. He also purchased a school desk, which he uses as a workstation, allowing him to further transition back into his happiest years. For many years, he fixated on the idea of a high school reunion, but his numerous attempts at trying to hold one inevitably failed, likely for the best, as the Manchester High School students of real life can't possibly compare with the one in his mind. Like many people who overindulge in nostalgia, Chris has a rather warped view of his time at Manchester High School in retrospect. He often looks back on it as a time where he was surrounded by friends and could have easily obtained the true love he seeks to this day, if only he had known how good he had it. In reality, his more down-to-earth recollections of high school paint a picture of Chris being bullied, fairly isolated, and disengaged, with even his friends only really sticking around because the educational setting required them to. Also, Bob actually paid some of them, but we won't... I think Chris knows that at this point, and also, if we a happy Chris at a school desk drawn 17 years after he graduated, so 2017, and it's not a bad drawing for like Chris's standards. It's not too bad a drawing. I'll give him credit for that. Now, that technically is the end of the discussion here. But again, I just want to like go over a few things just kind of like before we go. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter video, but the only way I can 100% reflect on this, and this is actually going to be a little bit harder for me to explain, so I understand, and maybe it's just because I don't understand all of it, possibly because here I am, and even though I'm going to be turning 23 years old at the end of the month, I'm still a little bit, I don't know whether you can still call me a young person technically, but I still feel like it's very, very strange, because I reckon when you get to the point of feeling nostalgia for things that have happened, maybe that's the point where you're recollecting on the fact that not only are you growing up, but you're getting older. And that's maybe a problem when it comes to Chris, and especially when a lot of the stuff was mentioned much later in his life, where nearly 10 years after he graduated he was trying to host a reunion, or 17 years later when he did a picture of or bought a school desk. That's what I'm a little bit worried about myself, and I don't particularly think it's too abnormal to be worried about the fact that you are getting older, and you reminisce on the better times purely because maybe you don't want to remember the bad times, or the bad times are so you've gotten so used to playing the bad moments over and over again in your mind that you just kind of like want to they don't recollect with anything anymore, and they just kind of like are there, and you just learn to deal and get over with it, like Alec Benson Leary said. But that's a problem I feel like with when Chris is going to get older again, is that how many more times is he going to recollect on how much he praises his time in high school, or even time when he spent, being quote-unquote famous on the internet. Because, for the lack of a better term, it's like a very weird sort of version of This Is Your Life. And Chris's life, even though as distraught and completely messed up as it is still Chris's life, and his alone. Part of me is saying that that's a little bit sadder in hindsight when I'm all the things I know of Chris, but maybe we should take this as meaning that maybe it would just be a better idea for everyone to just like leave Chris alone. Not because he's gone through enough, but does he really, because of how bad this can turn. And the speculations about Bob are also very highly going to be put up there in terms of Chris's life being changed again, because his dad has been dead for nearly 10 years now. And with everything that's kind of like happened in the last 10 years, I couldn't even begin to imagine what would happen by the time Chris loses his mother as well. So, Chris, I hope you're having a good time, Chris, looking back, because I would employ him to seriously consider changing that and looking ahead to the future. Because, Chris, you might not, because someday that time, looking back on time, that might be the only thing you might have left. So just watch what you're doing. I guess that's all I've got to say. So guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reading of Chris and Nostalgia on the Quickie discussion page. Please make sure to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Chris and Nostalgia for yourself. And I will hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.